Oh, this is Carly, and this is going to be a quick build guide for Starfield for my late C-class ship, which was requested, so I'm going to quickly go through it. I'm just going to start out with it here completely stripped deck by deck, because that's the easiest way to show you all of the components that are being used in here. And then we'll take a look at the exterior and interior later on. And I'll also, before we go into the interior exterior, I'll also give you a few tips that are needed to make it all work. So we have it spread out here. So we have our top deck over here. So this would be deck 4, like your captain's quarter, deck 3 over here, deck 2 over here, and then deck 1 over here. So starting at the top, we are having a Nova cowling up front, a bunch of Nova radiators. So we got the larger ones and the smaller ones to give that stepped size increase. Some Nova wings here, Hope Deck pipes on the aft of those wings, obliterator weapons here, but your weapons of course going to be your own choice. Some more radiators on top, plenty of portholes. For the head modules, we're running a Hope Deck companionway. This is our way down. We run a Hope Deck, what is this called, a hab spine. It gives a really nice feel to that interior bit. And then we go into the Taios Captain's Quarters. And again, this is a module, like pretty much all of these 3 hab modules can be chosen as you desire. So if you like a different one, that is completely fine. That is not going to be the case with most of the hab modules. So going down a deck, so this would be then deck 3. We have what I pretty much call the habitation deck. So we have a computer core here. So this connects to our bridge, and it connects up here to our captain's quarter. We use a Hope Tech storeroom here, or companionway, whatever ones you want. We use one here for the docker, which connects to the computer core. The way you put this in is very important. So you have to make sure that you absolutely force the connection to go into the computer core, and not that it wants to go down. So pretty much it is putting this in, connecting it there, taking this out, connecting it to there. I do a double up. It seems to work most of the time, but with the interior spacing, it is a little bit trial and error. Because if you don't, then it likes to go down and your interior routing makes no sense at all. Over here we have another companionway that also has these stairs down to deck 2. On the sides here we're using 2 Deimos all-in-one birds. So this is good for our living areas for the crew. Then we go into living quarters. So this 2x1, which acts a little bit like a kitchen area, and then we have a 2x2, which acts as the main gathering space. So both of these are Stroud Eklund, and these other 3 here, of course, are Deimos. Now, when it comes to all of the habs going onwards, it's pretty much you have to use these for the layouts, but you may find that there are some that also work. I will show you later how you can get some understanding of that, and of course trial and error always works. We have some more of the Nova radiators. We got some diamond spines here. I've got my shield generator here, which is the highest capacity shield generator in the game. We got some shroud end caps and cowlings. Some Deimos wigs at the edge here, good for our weapon locations. And then a pair of Hope Deck radiators in the back. So that will make up here for deck 3. Then if we move all the way over to this side, we are coming towards deck 2, which is our main function deck. So here we find a lot of the functional elements of the ship. Starting at the front, we have our Chabot C4 bridge from Nova Galactic. Of course, a really cool looking bridge. That leads into a Shroud control station, which is then being flanked by 2 Deimos engineering bays. We have the Bravo on the left side, looking of course to the front from our side on the right, and the engineering bay Alpha, and that of course is looking on the right side of the ship. Then we have a pair of the Nova braking engines, and behind that we have the Galleon S204 cargo holds. We have a total of 4 of them on this deck. These are really efficient cargo holds, and they are critical to giving us some of the much needed cargo capacity in the game. Here in the center we find our reactor and grav drive, which means that they are nicely protected in the middle of the ship. Then we have some Nova cowlings on both sides, another Shroud cowling over here, on top of that another Novatech radiator. We have a storeroom here and a storeroom here. These can be whatever brand you really want. These just happen to be the way that it worked out when I was building it. Now when it comes to this one, there is a very important thing that you need to do to get this one to properly work. And that is, in order to insert it, you do not want to have the bird installed right away. So we're going to build this science lab. You're going to put the storeroom or companionway on top of it, and then as a unit, you will insert that in the bottom into the ship. And then finally you go internally and then you can connect the final bit. That way you can actually force the connection. So you put it on top here, you put it incomplete in here, so you don't put in the final module yet. You save the ship. You go out. I actually went into the ship. I don't think that's needed, but you need to save the ship, get out of the builder, then go back into the builder, and then you finally add the last module. The reason for that is that these small ones can only have 3 connection points. But if you don't do them properly in the way that you want them to be done, it is going to go and put ladders in wrong places. So by doing that, we force the game to put our connection points where we want them to be. Then we go into a 2x2 brick area from Shroud Ackland, flanked by a Shroud Ackland infirmary, armory, and then another living quarters over here, which I guess you could say is the living quarters for the armory brickmaster or something like that. In the back here, we have a pair of SAL 6330 engines. These are some really nice engines and probably the best engines in the game. If you want to have more maneuverability and thrust, then you would run 6 of these engines instead of the layout that I use. But I use this because I also like it for the design aesthetics. And then we have a big fuel tank over here, 650 fuel. That's a really good chunk of fuel. Then going to deck 4. Here, of course, we are going to be finding our landing bay. So this one is from Tayo Engineering, so that it enters into the back over in this companionway. Your way up is going to be through the science lab. That is why we have to put this one on top of the science lab and then insert it into the ship. Now the science lab is actually not needed, so you can switch this out for something else if you want to. You just need to make sure that you can make the pathing work. The reason we don't need it is that we have a research station over here in the workshop as well. And of course we have a infirmary, so we also have our medical facility creator. Then for the landing gear, we're using the ones from Nova Galactic. So we use 4 of the white ones, we can see in here. We use 5 of the 4 landing gears, and then we also use a pair of the, like middle style landing gear. We have a bunch more of the Novatech radiators. The reason I use so many of the radiators purely like role-playing reasons. One of the hardest things to do is basically getting rid of heat. So you will need a lot of radiating capacity, because you can only radiate out your heat. You cannot cool through convection as we do here in our nice little atmosphere, which is probably the fan you can hear in the background because it's bloody warm in here. Then we have some more Deimos parts over here. Now these are, especially this one is important because these engines connect to the side. So this is what connects that engine to the side. These connect over here, because you can see that this is actually connected to here, but the reason I can't switch this around, as you can see over here, is we have 2 parts that are actually inside of each other. Now there is a little trick to doing that. I'll show you that at the end, but that's why these are here. And we have a pair of these Poseidon engines. So these are not as efficient as the other ones, but they of course use 4 power, so they bring a little bit more than these would do. But again, 6 of these is a better configuration, but for the looks of it, I use 4 engines in total. On the side wings here, we use a pair of turrets, again, weapons of your choice. And then finally, we have 2 more of these Galleon cargo holds, so we have a total of 6 on board, which gives us around 11k cargo capacity, which is, decent enough. And pretty much for the looks, they are not really needed. A couple more small fuel tanks in the back. So that makes up the entire layout of the C-class ship here, which I call the MV Sigrún, so mercantile vessel Sigrún. It is a fairly complicated build, especially on this interior, and it is going to require some trial and error, you will find. even if I wanted to with the best will in the world, I cannot exactly tell you the right configuration for every single bit, but a lot of it should just decently work and come out okay. So yeah, just trial and error a little bit, and especially this one to the storm over here, that's very important. So connect the storm to this one first, then put it in. And then for the docking area here, you really want to force that connection into the computer core. If you don't do that, it's going to have a stairway in there as well. The rest of it is like not too complicated. If you're going to build it, the advice I have, because of all of the exterior structural bits are like whatever, they can come last. Just make sure you go to the places that sell the HAPs that you need. And it doesn't matter which ones you need, just slap them on the ship just as long as you have enough of the right size. Go around the places, get all of them strapped into a ship that has whatever it needs. Especially like get this one, for example, start with the IO and build your way up. And just gather the parts as you go, just slap them on there. As long as it doesn't have any errors, you just save it, you fly to the place with another ship, and you just continue the process until you have all of the parts. Or if you have your outpost, then I think you can get a lot of them over there as well if you have a shipyard there. So yeah, 2 of the tricks that I said. Very important to understand with the interior layout of the ship is that each of the HAPs has a preference as to where it likes to connect. So if we take this connection way here and we say I want to connect a HAP over here, and I select these, you will see that they switch location as to where they connect. And the same here goes for these larger ones as well. And this is the game's preferred connection point. And this is really important because it will differ between the different type of modules and also manufacturer at times. It is really important that you have an understanding of this thing, because when the game routes the interiors, it will really like to use the preferred door locations. So sometimes you're fighting those quite a bit, so the best option is to try and work with them and not against them. Now when it comes to the trick of moving stuff into each other, it is a relatively simple one. So if we go here, we get some structural bits. Yeah, that would work. So I go here, boom, boom, boom. Now I put something over here, say that. Now what is important, in order for this to work, there needs to be a connection point there. So you can see here, there is a connection point available. But if I would grab this item, and I would be like, hey, I want you to fit in here, you can see that the game says, no, I can't do, because it is random. The way you can force the game to take it is if you have it selected like this, don't move your mouse, and use the keys to go down, and then if you're quick enough, so you release both the mouse and the down key, so the F key on the PC, at the same time, it will actually snap in place. So it is a little bit hacky, but that is how you can get parts to fit into each other. So then you can get things like I have over here, where you can see that this wing bit is entering the tail fin over here. But you can also do that on a horizontal plane, so you can have like these Deimos wings clip into some of the Nova cowlings, etc. So it is finicky, it's going to require a bit of trial and error, but it can be done. So if you like to do that, that is an option to do so. So with that all said, I am going to of course exit, and I do not want to save any of the modifications. That's another thing. Once you have your interior, so all of your HAPs, your bridge, and everything that's connected to the interior side of your ship, so also the docking collar, and it works, do not touch it. Ever. Because it will break your entire interior layout again, because there is a way and an order in which you have to connect it. Some people say that there isn't. They're wrong. The order in which you build things and save things does really matter. So once you have it working, do not touch it again. Yeah, let's go for the interior tour. So as we said over here, that's not the right key, that is. We have our little workshop. So that will give you, of course, your industrial bench, research station, spacesuit, weapon bench, all of the lot. Just a very good utility to have with you. Here we have our science station. Again, we don't really need it because we have a research station over there, and we will have a medical station in the infirmary. Going up then. So we're now entering deck 2. So we come in here through here. This is the one that I said, this is the tricky one, to get this ladder to work in here. So that's why you need to attach this module to the science lab and then insert them together. Now, if we look in here in back, we of course enter the brick area. On the side here, we have then our infirmary. You can see here, full infirmary. Again, research lab and a pharmaceutical lab. So that's why you don't technically need a science station and an infirmary if you just want functionality on your ship. You have the brick itself, of course, a couple of holding cells, the guard's desk 2 here, don't really understand the layout, but whatever. Then if we go through here, we have our armory. Now you will notice I have not decorated the interior of the ship, I haven't had the time for that. And then we have our, right area here, another living quarter. Not really needed, but it adds some more capacity. And if we move over through here, we enter, of course, the first of the engineering base, which also will have our ladder up to deck 3, so we'll go there momentarily. Then if we go into here, we come into our control station, which also, of course, has access to the lower area of the bridge. So you can go over here and get up inside there as well. And then over here we have our other engineering area. With in the back a little storage lobby. For whatever stuff you may need. Then we'll take the route up through the bridge. You can see here, this is of course this Nova bridge. It's probably one of the nicest looking ones in the game in my opinion. It really feels like sort of ground, and it keeps you in a central control position with really quite a good visibility outside. So that's a definite benefit. Then from here we enter the top area. So over here you can see we have our docking collar. So that enters through this door here. Then over here we have our stairs up to our captain's place. So that would be deck 4. We are now on deck 3. Here we have that same ladder leading down into the engineering base. So that's another way to get up into here. Then we enter some of these birds. So this is the first of the large ones. Then we go through the back into a 2x1 living area here. So this acts as your kitchen. And then over here we have this larger 2x2 living area. Let's see here with different spaces and places for people to be at. And then we have another of these larger birds over here. One of the things also when it comes to the interior is that the game will not make loop-de-loops. So you cannot make an interior that you can walk around in a circle. The game just doesn't do that. Something else to keep in mind. And finally, if we walk all the way over here through our computer core, we can go up to what is deck 4. Well, calling it an entire deck is maybe a bit of a stretch, considering all of this is this little walkway, and then of course we have this spine walkway. This is why I wanted it, because it gives really nice sort of visual appeal to it. Going through this circle, and then in the back we continue that circle with a porthole, and this is of course the captain's quarters. Now which captain's quarters you want to use is entirely up to you. It's preference. I happen to like the Taio one because it has at least somewhat decent bed. Another good alternative would be the Nova Galactic one. I think the Deimos and Shroud ones, your bed is like a glorified field cot, which is just like, come on, I want something that's a bit more comfortable because the crew has better beds than those captain's quarters do. And then we just have a whole bunch of portholes in the back here, because otherwise it's just a single chair here, and now you have like really nice views, and you can check out things up close and personal. So that is the entire interior. Now let's go ahead and take her up into space. Sit down. Oh, and this armor is some console command thingy. Like, this entire save game for me has been a console command experience, because I just try to find out what I can do. Now here you can see it also, the landing gear, and the reason I like these Nova gears is they look really, really beefy. And it just gives a really cool visual as well when they take off. And here we have it. It is in full up in orbit. We can go into maybe into the photo mode a bit. Let's enhance the field of view a bit, makes it easier. This is it in full glory. The MV Sigrún. Weapon-wise, if you want the advice, I like to run a couple of the particle beams up front, so just a pair of them. 2 of the 6 power, like EM units for boarding purposes. And of course we have the particle beam turrets in the back there, which gives us a nice bit of coverage there. I would give the advice to always keep those powered off and only power them on whenever you want stuff to die around you. And depending on the level that you're fighting, that can die very, very quickly. Well, yeah, that is the entirety of the build. I hope it will give you some inspiration. If you want to copy it in full, of course, be my guest. The ship itself was inspired again by somebody's other builds. And that's, you know, generally how this stuff is gonna go. You see something that looks cool, you're going to try and build something similar, and then you just end up building it in your own way, so to speak. Yeah, it is quite the experience, and like building these C-class ships, like your main frustration is going to be that interior. That is just really something I hope Bethesda will work on, and that they allow us to say like, hey, I want a door to connect from here to here, so that we really have control over our interior layouts. Because not having that control makes the shipbuilding honestly a lot less fun, in my personal opinion. So yeah, there you go. And I hope it was informative, and thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.